So, morning, everybody, from the National Coal Mining Museum. What I'd like to talk to you about today is ambition and ongoing feasibility study we've got here at the museum to introduce a mine water heat network at the museum, and potentially more widely in terms of wider network too, about the rationale about why we want to do that, how the feasibility study is going, and how we want to take that forward into the future and why. I would, by way of confession, excuse, and apology from the start, I'd emphasize the fact that I'm a historian by training and I've worked in museums for the last 20 years. I'm not an engineer, but we're working with a fantastic engineering team from Sustainable Energy. And a big thank you to the MRA as well for their support. But as the focus is really on what we're trying to achieve and why we're trying to do it, although we'll be updating on the feasibility study we're undertaking. And because we're only partway through that feasibility, you've got me for the purposes of this morning. But in the future, we will be publishing the work from that study, and the teams involved will be looking to share and discuss what they've been doing. So by way of background, we're based at Caphouse Colliery mainly, although we've got a secondary colliery, Hope Pit, on the site as well. Now, Caphouse was sunk in around 1780 and continued operation until 1985. So we span the kind of the decades, centuries of peat production of coal in the UK, although we are situated in a landscape which has got coal mining and dozens of coal mining sites which stretch back much further. In the late 1980s, we became the Yorkshire Coal Mining Museum, and then in the mid 1990s, we became the National Coal Mining Museum for England, and we work very closely with our partners in Scotland and in Wales as well. With the closure of Kellingley in late 2015, we understand and we think that means that effectively now we are the last accessible deep colliery in England. And obviously we also have Blenavon in Wales. Each year, we welcome around 70,000 visitors actually deep into the workings of the colliery. So over 70,000 people go down our cage, go down 140 meters to explore the history of coal mining from its earliest days up until the 21st century. And we have tens of thousands more people than that also visit our wider sites. And we have a successful schools program with over 20,000 participants every year. So that's our site. It's a large site. It's around 50 acres. You can see the two sites there. To the top left, to the east is Caphouse, and then further down to the east, to the west, sorry, bottom right on your screens is Hope Pit. What you can also see in between there is our mine water treatment scheme, or scheme, or the MRAs, in terms of the settling ponds, lagoons, and our rebeds. The other thing I'll mention when we're on this slide is the main focus of our study and work is around our own site. But there is also a major complex site with very high heat demands just to the south, which is part of the Ministry of Justice's portfolio. And we're incorporating the heat needs and potential of what we can provide into our studies at the present time in terms of whether a future heat network can be extended. So the MRA is pumping water from our shafts, and there it is, and I guess that's what this is all about. So we're on average pumping around 1.5 million gallons of water every single day. And we're pumping that from just below the 140 meter level. And you can see from there just the sheer visible heat of the mine water that's coming out. That mine water is coming out at a fairly steady 14 degrees C, although that does fluctuate throughout the year. And as you can imagine, given the kind of waterfall effect and the sheer spectacle, quite often you'll find dozens of people and families just staring through the fencing and watching that mine water, which, as you can imagine, gives us great hope and potential for what we might be able to do with that mine water and what we can engage people with. So in terms of what we want to do, we are a museum of coal, but we're not just a museum of coal in terms of how it was mined and the technicalities of that. We recognize that fundamentally we're also a museum about the legacy of coal. And that includes on communities, on people. It includes about its impact on landscape. and subsequent remediation. And also, crucially, it includes the impact that coal and the burning of coal has had on the environment. What we also recognize, or rather what we hope, and we hope others agree, is that we think and we hope that we're well positioned as a potential public showcase of low carbon technologies, including mine water heat network. That includes, in part, geographically. I guess we're just a few minutes away from junction 38 of the M1, but also we're a site that's designed and geared up for public access. As I suggested, we have significantly over 100,000 people visiting the site each year, coming to look at our mine water, engaging with the stories that we share. But we've also got a successful schools program, successful partnership program, and also in the future, our plans are well underway to transform our secondary pit, Hope Pit, to update it and turn it into an indoor and outdoor interactive science park, celebrating the science and innovation and engineering of mining. That also, to jump ahead slightly, is positioned immediately next to the future potential positioning of a major energy centre if we can go ahead with this heat network, the potential for which those two things being together is hopefully clear. So in terms of where we are, there has been a history, if you like, of mine water heat technology and Cap House and the National Coal Mining Museum, as was alluded to in the previous talk. We have, on a small scale, the pilot, the field test that was mentioned by the previous speaker in terms of blade technology, which was installed, I think, just over a decade ago or approximately a decade ago. Understand from our electrical engineers that that is actually still ticking over and is still operational and maintained. It's not showcased at the current time, but we're certainly looking to do that going forward because it's literally sat there as a fantastic example of the technology and the potential that's not been used. Having said that, in terms of the context of obviously wider advancements in mine water heat technology, mine water heating, as is obviously the focus of these 2 days, we think the potential is to do far more in terms of the site and what we can demonstrate and what we can engage people with. So in terms of a mine water heat network for the site and potential adjacent partnership sites and a wider heat network, an outline feasibility was completed in 2024, and we are partway through a detailed feasibility, and that's delivered by the great team by Sustainable Energy, and a very bad photograph taken by myself on the right-hand side, and supported by DESNZ as well. Thank you for their support, and as I mentioned before, to the MRA, who we're keeping in close contact with. In terms of the process of that feasibility and going forward viability studies, this is nothing particularly out of the ordinary, so it's probably fairly standard to most people listening. The team have looked in detail in terms of the heat demand of our core site and partner sites. Looked at the potential of the mine water that is being pumped at the site and also identified key technical challenges. We're now at the stage now, which is why I don't want to be premature in sharing what their current thinking is, and not least I'm certainly not well placed to do so. They're currently working up some different approaches and a very comprehensive options appraisal as to how a heat network could be designed and go forward. And then shifting to understand what the capital outlay is going to be to make that heat network happen, where we are in terms of where we're thinking we could be in terms of savings around cost and in terms of carbon. And indeed, we're starting to look and to discuss with partners the rationale for us taking our heat network forward and what the business case could be. In terms of those very provisional findings, certainly it's thought that it's technically achievable, what we want to do. There's very high-level indication there in terms of where we're sat in terms of heat availability and demand, both for ourselves and the potential overall network. There's certainly enough heat to provide heat for what we need to do in terms of the extended museum complex of over 28 buildings over that 50-acre site. And there certainly seems to be the potential to support adjacent and connected sites, but we don't want to basically state the case for that too much at the current time, not least because of additional complexities and challenges around adjacent sites. There's certainly challenges, options, decisions that need to be taken as to how and why and if we go forward on this, and indeed based on the work of Sustainable Energy, the approach that's taken, the design, and how we take it forward. There are some key risks and challenges, and again, many of these are very common to all mine water schemes. We have got an extensive site, but also, as you can see, in terms of that bird's eye on the top right, we've got a very elongated site as well. We need to look very carefully in terms of scale and time of mechanical overhaul refit of our existing systems. which is overdue and needs to be done. We are working with biomass at the present time. We've got 3 biomass boilers, so obviously that does impact in terms of the business case and in terms of potential carbon savings. There's challenges, obviously, which are common in terms of high concentrations of ochre, chloride, in terms of heat exchange themselves, implications of heat loss for subsequent mine water treatment, which we don't anticipate being an issue. And perhaps one challenge for us, which is fairly specific to our site, is that we're working with a very important site, a very historically significant site. We're in a conservation area, got several listed buildings. That's likely to go forward. We're working with Historic England at this present time, and we expect many more of our structures and buildings to be uprated in terms of their designations. Obviously, what that means for us, that in terms of designs of energy sensors and other things, we need to be extremely sensitive. Having said that, we seem to have a consensus internally and also with key external partners that actually, even if we have quite radical, exciting architectural interventions on this important historic site, then there's obviously going to be contrast and difference, but at the same time, that is all kind of encapsulated in what we're trying to do, which is to share the story of coal right from its earliest history now into the role of coal mines and indeed mine water going forward into the future. So in terms of where we are, we're looking to complete our detailed feasibility over coming weeks and months, and Team Sustainable Energy and ourselves are looking to share the findings from that as far as widely as we can, as soon as we're in a position to do so. And we've consulted our key partners and stakeholders before we do that. Analysis of long-term modelling is taking place now, and looking at that business case as to whether we go forward. Like I said, we are anticipating key savings and key benefits of the scheme, but also what we do want to do and what we do see as being critical is that role we can play in terms of engaging people with mine water and the legacy of coal. So what we're hoping to do, but watch this space because we are at very early points, is to, we hope, deliver a successful mine water heat network, which could be for the museum complex, it could be more widely, but crucially, which also celebrates, inspires, and motivates people around the technology and the potential of mine water. We want that to become a focus for an extension of our learning skills and our public engagement, which we think we're in a very lucky and a very good position to be able to do. And also crucially, alongside that, but which isn't a focus for today, we've also been able to secure separate funding from a different source to explore the potential to introduce lots of other types of low carbon technology and innovation across our landscape and across our buildings, to really extend the way in which the museum can be showcase of low carbon technology on all its forms. So we're just getting cracking with the detailed feasibility on that, and we're hoping to complete that study early next year. So I hope that makes sense. I may well not be in a position to reply to technical questions, but anyway, in the chat, I will share my email address, and the wider team will get back to people if that's okay.